From the Ministry of the Presidency in Georgetown, this is This Week with the President.
Welcome to This Week with the President, a news magazine which provides you with an in-depth look at the policies, programs, and work of Guyana's president. In the highlights this week, government and opposition to set up committee to work out modalities relating to the appointment of GCOM chairman. NOC to benefit from urgent government interventions, government to work with indigenous groups to address concerns over lands commission. Those stories and more in This Week with the President. A person who is not any kind of political, racial, or religious activist with an unblemished record of integrity and professionalism has knowledge of the electoral system and has proven to be impartial. These are the qualities that the President is looking for in a nominee for the post of the chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission. To say that the task of heading this important commission is a daunting one would be a mild description, taking into consideration the nation's history where national elections have been marred on more than one occasion by racial and political tension and violence. It is for this reason that the head of state has been unrelenting in his position that the fit and proper criteria prescribed by Article 161(2) of the Constitution on the appointment of a chairman be followed to a T.
The important thing is that we must not trivialize the appointment. The reason why the Constitution is worded in such a way is to ensure that the nominee, or all of the nominees, are persons of intelligence, persons of integrity, and persons of impartiality. That is why they put so much emphasis on somebody who is either a judge or who's qualified to be a judge. But they want somebody who possesses those three qualities: the impartiality, the integrity, and of course the intelligence. To be a judge, you should possess those three qualities.
Article 161(2) of the Constitution states that the chairman of the Elections Commission shall be a person who holds or has held office as a judge of a court having unlimited jurisdiction in civil and criminal matters in some of the Commonwealth, or a court having jurisdictions in appeals from any such court, or who is qualified to be and appointed as a judge or any other fit and proper person. Following the retirement of the former GCOM chairman, Dr. Steve Surge-Bally, the president and the opposition leader commenced consultations, as required by law, on his replacement. To date, however, opposition leader has not been able to submit a list where, as prescribed by the Constitution, all names submitted therein match the required criteria as required by the law. Following the rejection of the second list submitted by the leader of the opposition, earlier this week, the President convened yet another meeting in a determined bid to reach consensus on the appointment of this important office. Of course, the opposite side has its own interpretation of the article, mainly arguing that fit and proper could mean any Guyanese citizen of reputable standing, and not just persons qualified to be judges. However, the government believes that fit and proper according to the Constitution means that the nominee's record of service must match that of a judge.
I will read for you the letter which was written by His Excellency the President to the Leader of the Opposition on this matter. As you're aware, there were consultations that were held between His Excellency the President and the Leader of the Opposition. I was present, the Attorney General present, and Mr. Anil Nandlal was present as well. And at those consultations, the Leader of the Opposition requested the President to explain, in his opinion, what were the qualities to be possessed by the Chairman of GCOM. And His Excellency wrote the Leader of the Opposition on the 13th of March 2017, saying this: "Dear Mr. Jaglio, you had requested at our meeting of Wednesday, 2017-0301, my opinion on the qualities that a candidate to be chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission should possess. I forward a statement of the qualities for your consideration. So this is what happened at the last meeting. He asked for some qualities, the president listed those qualities and sent it back to the leader of the opposition. If, in fact, there are some issue in relation to what the president has written to you, to the leader of the opposition, and he has some issues in relation to that, I believe that the practical thing to do will be to say, Your Excellency, I have received your letter dated the 14th of March 2017, and I do have some issues in relation to 1, 2, 3, or as the case might be, and request that you reconsider or something.
At the end of the most recent consultation held on Monday, the two sides issued a joint statement in which they agreed that the opposition leader will submit a third list and that a high-level team will be assembled to work on exploring modalities to resolve the matter in the event that the third list is also rejected. Advocating for the protection of small island developing states, pushing green development, and lobbying for partnerships and support in areas of infrastructure and technology were high on the President's agenda in his participation at the 11th edition of the European Development Days in Brussels, Belgium last week. The President used this forum to inform leaders of the developed world of the contributions small states are making to arrest climate change, even though their greenhouse gas emission ratios are among the lowest in the world.
For us, the environment is a major concern. Climate change is a single global threat which endangers us all. Climate change, if left unchecked, can result in a global environmental catastrophe. Extreme weather patterns, rising sea levels, desertification, drought, and increasingly intense and frequent natural disasters have been inflicting human fatalities and costly destruction on developed and developing countries. Climate change, however, has been most severe in small island developing and low-lying coastal states, such as those in the Caribbean. Small states like ours are making a big contribution to arresting climate change. A new model of development, the green model, represents hope for Mother Earth.
This new model that the President is pushing places emphasis on protecting the world's ecosystems, reducing greenhouse gas emissions through renewable energy use, providing environmental services to the world through avoided deforestation and conservation. The President firmly believes that the green approach is essential if the world is going to stand a chance against climate change. This phenomenon is a single threat which endangers the entire globe and, if left unchecked, can result in a global environmental catastrophe that will only result in human fatalities and destruction.
Green development technologies represent for us a commitment to environmental preservation and protection. Small island developing and low-lying coastal states require significant investment and transfers of technology to implement their green plans. Investment in development must be linked to investment to protect our environment so as to avoid global environmental catastrophe. Investment in the environment means investment in the future, investment in the earth, investment in eternity.
While in Brussels, the President also participated in several bilateral engagements, during which he pushed Guyana as a green state in the making and one that was ripe for investment and development. He had discussions with the European Investment Bank and President of the ACP-EU Joint Parliamentary Assembly, Mr. Louis Michel. He also had a meeting with a legislator from the European Union's Parliament, during which he called for a speedy resolution of the issue regarding the Parliament's non-support of Guyana's removal from the money laundering blacklist. Even with a small population of less than 1 million people on a landmass of 83,000 square miles, there are numerous instances of anomalies regarding the demarcation and/or allocation of communal and even individually owned lands across the country, some dating back to the pre-independence period. It is precisely for this reason that a holistic review is needed, and that was the intention behind the appointment of the Lands Commission of Inquiry. Following the setting up of the commission in March, a number of indigenous groups have registered their dissatisfaction, citing a number of reasons why the commission's work should not proceed under the current terms of reference. In an effort to address these concerns, the head of state has commenced a process of engaging with the representatives of these groups so that the work of rectifying the land anomalies that has plagued the country over the years can move forward.
The APNU-AFC coalition government recognizes that the issue of lands is far from settled, and that is why we decided to take a decision to ensure that our people can commute freely this beautiful land of many waters, Guyana, without worrying about the future. There is enough land to satisfy the needs of the Guyanese people and generations to come. But today, land is still a source of pain and controversy, which, if not settled, will divide us more, hindering our development and growth as a nation.
Executive members of the Amerindian Peoples Association were the first group to meet the President and Minister of State, Mr. Joseph Harmon, on Wednesday. At a meeting, the President outlined 5 points that will ensure that the Lands Commission of Inquiry meet the needs of all stakeholders.
Arising out of the discussions which took place, there were 5 points which the President, summarizing the meeting, made. The first had to do with a review of all of the literature with respect to Amerindian land titling. What was suggested, and the meeting agreed to that, was that we will establish a body, a group of persons who would accumulate all of the literature that has to do with Amerindian land titling, and that they will review this literature and present that literature at the end of it to the Land Commission of Inquiry. That's the first step. The second has to do with an embracing of what is called free, prior and informed comment, FPIC. Consent. And what that means is that wherever communities exist, that these communities will have to be visited, they have to be told what the Commission of Inquiry is all about, and we will get their comments and their buying into it. The third has to do with reconciling our positions. Reconciling the position of the government, the position of the indigenous peoples organizations, the representatives, on the need for us to have a proper Commission of Inquiry.
A special body will be established comprising of representatives of indigenous peoples organizations to ensure that the President's interventions are properly implemented. Once the positions of all stakeholders are reconciled, then new terms of reference will be drafted for the Commission to proceed. While this process is ongoing, the Commission's work insofar as it relates to Amerindian lands will be halted.
The President has advised that the Commission of Inquiry, as it relates to the Amerindian lands, that aspect of the inquiry be put on hold until such time that the two teams from the government and the indigenous peoples organizations can go through all of these steps that I spoke about earlier. The aspects about the other concerns of the COI that has to do with other lands except the indigenous people's lands, that will continue. Right? So the inquiry will continue where that is concerned, but insofar as it has to do with indigenous people's lands, the Commission's work will be put on hold pending the outcome of what is going to happen with the body that has been now set up. The Commissioner of Lands and Surveys has been designated in this instance to be the contact person for the government, and pending our meeting with the National Tushaw Council and the other indigenous organizations representatives, we will then constitute the representatives of that side to meet with the government side.
A call was also made by the APA for a review of the Amerindian Act of 2006, and the President explained that the law revision process is a very lengthy one. As such, only the injurious elements of the Act will be addressed in the short term for the purpose of fulfilling the mandate of the Commission. This step that has been taken by the government was welcomed by the APA members, who expressed their willingness to work to find common ground.
But I think it's a good step in the sense that we're able to sit down, we're able to discuss, we're able to air our concerns with the process, with things that have happened in the past, and how we can move forward as well. So I think it's good.
In March this year, Reverend George Chakasang, Mr. David James, Miss Carol Khan James, Professor Rudolph James, Mr. Lennox Caleb, Miss Paulette Henry, and Miss Belinda Prasad were sworn in by President Granger to the Lands Commission of Inquiry. The Commission's mandate is to examine and make recommendations to resolve issues and uncertainties surrounding individual, joint, or communal ownership of lands and Amerindian titling issues. The fact that not all children have the benefit of growing up in a safe, nurturing home environment is one that Guyana cannot escape or ignore. Too many children, because of their difficult circumstances, are left to the perils of the system, and eventually they can fall by the wayside. It is incumbent on the administration to find ways to ensure that this vulnerable section of the population is protected and provided with opportunities for self-development. On Friday, the President, accompanied by Minister of Education Ms. Nicolette Henry, visited the New Opportunity Corps at Onderneming on the Essequibo Coast to listen to the concerns of the minors who are housed there. He said that these children are the country's future and they must be given the necessary wherewithal to take over the reins of leadership when that time comes.
The most important thing that you can do in your lives, apart from eating and dressing and living in a house, is of course your education. Your education determines who you will be, what you will do, whether you'll be rich or poor, whether you'll be successful or failure. And the purpose of your being here is to ensure that you get the best possible education in your circumstances. We cannot build a country with illiterate persons. That is why I want all of you to take your education seriously. And that's the first and most important reason why I've come here today.
With the month of July fast approaching, all government agencies will be focused on putting together their budgetary priorities for the fiscal year 2018. And the development of the youth population is one such priority for the President. The issues raised by the students range from the need for shorter sentences, to better facilities, to more trained personnel to man the facilities, all of which the government, through the Department of Culture, Youth and Sport, will be looking to improve in the short and medium term.
I am aware that there have been delays in the system that were unnecessary most of the time, and so those will have to be corrected. The other thing that will have to be corrected would be implementation of a system that will allow more presidential pardon for students and NOC. Last month, His Excellency pardoned one student from the NOC who would be migrating with his parents in the USA. And so once the criteria would be determined on a case-by-case basis and they will be satisfied by students, there will be greater opportunities coming out of this to implement a system whereby there are obviously more presidential pardons. In terms of the extracurricular activity, the fact that that came up so many times as an issue, notwithstanding the institution currently having the facilities there, that is something that will have to be fixed immediately.
The NOC is a detention facility for juveniles or young offenders. Its role was supposed to be one that facilitates rehabilitation and offering counseling and training to young people who, for many unfortunate reasons, found themselves on the wrong side of the track. However, much work needs to be done from a policy level to realign the facility's focus in the interest of its wards. A closer look at the students, whose ages range from 11 to 17, show that majority of them were charged for wandering, a simple misdemeanor that does not necessarily require a severe sentence.
These are children and they need love. They need parental care. And as a state, we are the parent of those children. And so if you're dealing with staff that are angry and a student that is angry, well, you know what will happen. And so in 2016, with support from USAID, the Department of Culture was able to have an assessment done, a report, and recommendations specifically related to reintegration of students coming out of NOC after they would have left there. The situation sometimes can be pretty much dire because they're coming from homes where there are broken relationships, and I don't think you come from the best home if you end up at NOC, and you know the social issues that are there. An area that is very obvious that has to be supported is psychosocial support in order to ensure that you're mentally and spiritually in a place to get back and to be reintegrated to society and continue at a pace that will lead to your own personal advancement and, of course, by extension, the advancement of this country.
International relations are an exceptionally important aspect of citizenship in a global society. These relationships often lead to strong bilateral programs of cooperation through which countries, particularly small developing states, benefit significantly. Guyana has many such development partners, such as China, the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom. Its relationship with the latter will see the country finally putting forward workable policies to address the crime situation in Guyana. Through the Security Sector Reform Project, Guyana will see improved policy making and crime fighting interventions. At a reception hosted in honor of the 91st birth anniversary of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II by the British High Commissioner to Guyana, Mr. Greg Quinn informed that the British security expert Mr. Russell Combe, who is an advisor to the President as part of the SSR, is on the cusp of producing his initial interim report.
His desire, shared, I know, by all of us, is that in addition to the strategic aspects of his mandate, work starts on implementing some of the recommendations that he will make as soon as possible. As I have said on many occasions, none of us want to see a further worthy report produced which simply sits on a shelf. The work that the UK is doing on SSR is only part of a broader relationship we have on combating serious organised crime through a wide range of assistance provided by organisations such as the UK National Crime Agency, or FBI for want of a better term, as well as support to the Guyana Defence Force. Significant UK funds are also being committed to these areas and others. For example, there is some £61 million worth of DFID funding expected to take place in Guyana over the next few years.
President Granger, who lobbied for the reintroduction of this program after it was rejected by the previous administration, said that the project is not only important in terms of strengthening security on the coast, but it will also see greater emphasis on the protection of the country's borders.
Guyana's security and its struggle to preserve its sovereignty and territorial integrity also have received Britain's unwavering support consistently over the last 51 years. Guyana's development in the fields of education, public sector reform, security sector reform, strengthening of the judiciary, disaster relief, water supply, restructuring of the sugar industry, and debt relief has received Britain's assistance. Britain's Caribbean Infrastructure Fund will be a welcome and necessary boost to the extension of our country's physical and public infrastructure. Guyana is particularly pleased with Britain's re-engagement in the re-implementation of reforms in the security sector. Guyana, through this initiative, will benefit from improvement in policy making and crime fighting.
Guyana and Britain have maintained diplomatic relations since May 26, 1966. During his recent visit to London in April, President Granger met with Her Majesty the Queen, who he said shares his commitment to environmental protection.
Guyana looks forward to continued collaboration and cooperation with Britain for the protection of the environment, for the promotion of peace, and for the development of our economy.
In the Presidency and Beyond this week, we'll take a look at the recent outreach conducted by the Starkey Hearing Foundation, where over 506 persons were outfitted with hearing aids free of cost at an outreach at the National Exhibition Center on Wednesday. Officials from the foundation paid a courtesy call on the President to update him on their work. The visiting team spoke of the rollout of the second phase of their project and informed the head of state of a training program that they have started for local personnel in order to make this hearing mission in Guyana sustainable. Since last year, the foundation headed by William and Tanny Austin has been working closely with the government of Guyana, more so the First Lady's office, to help persons with hearing impairments.
I met Mrs. Austin, the wife of the founder, about 2 years ago at the UN, and she expressed her interest in bringing their foundation's hearing aid and audiology assistance to Guyana. They have since made contact with the audiology department of the Ministry of Public Health, Dr. Kweko, and the ministry has helped them set up the interviews for people who have hearing loss and want to have it addressed. So I think this is about the third or the fourth mission they've had here. They're interested in coming back, and I think they've also done a good job of explaining to people the importance of caring your hearing, so to speak. And I'm very happy to work alongside with them. Dr. Lawal, who is the person who comes down with them, work with the Starkey Foundation, is always here, and they're very well organized. And as I said, they link in with the audiology department of the Ministry of Public Health, and I think the Lions Club and other organizations assist them. So they've not only done their outreach in Georgetown, they've gone to other areas of the country, and the ministry brings those people down, right, Dr. Kweko? And the beauty of this is that there's a record of all the patients, high-tech, barcoded, which the ministry keeps, but it also shares with Starkey. So they have a complete database on all the people they have treated.
The foundation, which was started in 1984 in the United States, has now expanded its reach across the globe. It believes in using hearing as a vehicle to reflect caring and improving the lives of individuals and families. The foundation has provided more than 1.9 million hearing aids to people over 100 countries. And with that, we've come to the end of this week's program. Thank you for joining me. For regular updates on the Ministry of the Presidency, go to our website, www.motp.gov.gy. Like our Facebook page, Ministry of the Presidency, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at MOTP Guyana. Do have a safe and productive rest of the week. Goodbye.